What's good? Welcome to the Loophole channel. Today I'm going to be breaking down an 80s beat in the style of Tory Lanez's latest album. Yeah, that sounds crazy. So this is one of my favorite beats that I made recently. You can see, at least for me, it's a bit more complicated in terms of the arrangement than most other beats that I make. But I'm going to dive in from when I started, which is actually from the bass. Now the bass is from a pack that me and Fiverr got coming up next year. It sounds like this. You know, it's kind of 80s Michael Jackson style bass here. Usually I don't start with the bass. This was just kind of to get the groove. I've been listening to a lot of 80s songs recently. The groove really comes from the bass and how that kind of mixes in with the drums. So it's the same for the first three parts and then the final section. And then it loops back again. Now this is all in the key of G major, I think, or E minor, I guess, if we're starting on E. Then if you mix that in with the kick, then you start to get a bit more movement, a bit more groove. The kick is from a pack I've got coming out with Cryptic sometime next year. That one's gonna be crazy. Actually no, most of these sounds come from that pack. Just got it loading here, don't even have a name for it yet, but it's going to have lots and lots of usable sounds from lots of different genres. Also, I've noticed in a lot of these songs from the 80s is that they layer a synth bass with an actual real bass. On the real bass, this is what it sounds like without any effects. It's a Scarby Rickenbacker. So, you know, it's got a lot of movement, but when you start to add some EQs, took away some of the highs, then you got it basically volume boosted and then some of the lows boosted using this guitar rig preset. The preset is Slap with Grid, but then I've tweaked it slightly because I think there was a bit of reverb, which I didn't want. So that sounds like this. So you got a lot more bass presence, and then I've added 2 more EQs, which boost the bass, and then I've cut out sort of the clashing frequencies with the synth bass here. So then both of them together sound like this. And then with the kick. And then you'll start to hear some movement when I bring in snares. So it's a big gated snare from, you know, 80s sound. Again, these sounds are from this pack with Cryptic. Now when we bring in the snares. So it's very, very 80s sounding. Now I've got 3 more snares here. All 3 of them are to add kind of a bit more bounce, which I don't think it really makes sense to hear them on their own because they don't have any context, but yeah, all 3 of these snares are from that pack as well that's coming out. And then start to bring in some hi-hats. The hi-hat, again, from this pack. I do have some effects on the hi-hat. Just to take out some lows. A delay to give it that bounce. And then I've got an 80s style reverb. About a quarter mixed in. To give it some bounce. Then I got a shaker here from Nami's kit. Pretty much the same pattern, I think. Yeah, it's slightly different. This one's more of a constant bounce. With the hi-hat, it's slightly less constant. Yeah, the shaker by itself sounds like this. Just got a bit of reverb and EQ, cutting out the lows. Mixed together, gives it that bounce with these snares. Bring in some perks. So you're getting a lot of bounce now. Bring in some more percussive elements here. Bring in the snares. And then bringing in the bass. So you can get that 80s style, you know, triplet bounce very, very easily if you just know where to place the different elements. You don't want to do too much, but you want to fill all the pockets, you know, because each element kind of has its purpose. So the percussion, it's just to add accents throughout. The tom is to add some movement. And then you got the crashes and the mini risers. They're more for tension and release. So now let's move on to the melodic elements. What I tried to do was fit the chords of the main synth to the bass. So you can see it moves from an E to a G, then F to a G. That's generally the pattern. And you can see with the ghost notes here, I followed that pattern with the chords. All it is just a load of major triads. So I've got these chords, then got little, you know, melodic elements dotted throughout just to give it a bit more progression. And then you can see, obviously, I've got this triplet pattern here. The synth itself has this triplet bounce. It's the Fiona preset. I think it's from the Hums Bank, the Hums Millennia Bank. But you can see here, there is a triplet movement here with the filter. You can see from LFO 2, it's 1/8 triplet. I think it was a slightly different pattern when I loaded up the preset, but I just tweaked it so it was a triplet bounce instead of a regular bounce, I think. Without any effects, it sounds like this. So a lot brighter, I guess. And then what I did was add in a bit more bass with the sound shifter, and then just put it about a quarter mix. Full mix sounds like this. So I didn't want it like that. Took away the lows from it, took away some of the highs. Then one of my basically cheat codes to getting a fuller 80s sounding preset is this chorus dimension D on the 3rd setting. Without it, it sounds like this. With it, it sounds like this. To me, that just gives it a lot more fullness, I guess. Added a pan man, just a very, very slight panning effect, and then finally took out a lot of the lows again and then ducked this region. I think this was after I added some more elements, and then there was one of the elements was quite present over here, so I just ducked it out. So then you get this sound. So then to complement that, I added in this second synth. It's the 1999 keys. I've tweaked it slightly, but this featured in the 1999 song from Prince. Very iconic sound. Without any effects, I know it's a whole lot brighter than that. And it's very dry sounding as well. So what I did was took away some of the lows, added that chorus again, added a delay so it was less dry. I think I still wanted to take away some of the highs, so then added in these EQs, takes away some of the highs, that's lows, and that's some more highs. So then we got this sound. So then putting them together, sounds like this. So it's kind of like call and response. You got one pan to the left, one pan to the right. Next element is the ARP. ARP was just to add some more texture. Within the mix, you can't really hear it, but it gives it some more movement. Same MIDI as the synth, I'm pretty sure. Again, it's kind of buried. This was the pensive ARP preset in the Juno. I think I just changed the rate so it was triplets instead of on the beat. Added another synth again. The space preset from Loophole 3. Sounds like this on its own. Let's just solo this. There's definitely a sidechain here from Shaperbox. I made my own preset here in gross beat. Basically, it's a halftime, but then with a fade, because gross beat quite often adds in clicks. So I've just put this volume automation just so it fades in a bit more. What this has done, I've half-timed it, kind of like what I did with Sound Shifter with the other synth, just to add a lower layer. Like that, but it's mixed in a low mix. Taking away a lot of the lows. Then I've done a few things here with Shaperbox. What I've done initially is the width, so basically it's getting wider every triplet, so it just basically expands in the stereo field, which to me adds a nice pulsing effect. Added a sidechain for the volume, then done a slow sweep using the filter, just so it adds this kind of build-up effect. gets slowly brighter. Without the effects, sounds like this. So very different. Then I've added in the default preset in the CMI, which is actually a vocal synth that was used a lot in the 80s. Basically what I've done is I've added in straight chords here and then copied and pasted the bass line as well. In the 80s, quite often what they do in pop music would be play a bass line in a synth or on a real bass and then play the same thing in a vocal synth. So without any chords, sounds like this. So it kind of just highlights the bass movement. I've also added chords just because I like the sound of it. So together sound like this. And then with effects, we've just added a bit of a phaser, delay, and then just taking out the lows and some of the highs. And then we've also got a pad here just to add a bit more presence to some more elements of the song. Very low mix. Added quite a lot of effects to this just to make it quite thin as opposed to how it sounded originally. Very, very spacey originally. Added these in effects. Very, very low in the mix as well. And then the final element I added was a brass sound. I think it's just a natural brass sound. Sounds like this. And that's, I think, just for, you know, the second last chorus and then the final chorus, just to add some more presence, make it seem a bit more grand, I guess. Added a wave shaper to add saturation. Filtered out a bit. Reverb. And then a bit more filtering. So then those elements that I just described added together sounds like this. So you can see they're all adding more presence to the area. They're not really adding any main lines. Those come from the first two. But if we hear those melodic elements all together, sounds like this. So it sounds very grand, basically. So then all the elements we've heard so far added together sounds like this. So that was basically everything that I did in this stage. Then I brought it over to the playlist and then I had to go at structuring it out, adding some other elements. So I added a perk loop. I think this was from Ty Leon's pack that he dropped on our site. It sounds like this. Again, has that triplet bounce. And then I added this shaker. I don't know where I got it from. Oh, okay, so it's from an Oliver kit. So the Oliver kits on Splice are some of the best kits you can go to for 80s sounding drums. A lot of them are very disco heavy. The percussion loop sounds like this, which is obviously not the groove that I was going for. So I took it and chopped it up, basically. Sounded like this. It's not on the grid at all, but it just adds a bit more texture, I think. Again, it just adds more groove. I also added some more crashes, just dotted around. Here, I've got some more crashes and also risers, and then also little bits of melodic texture. I think these are from 5 and XY's kit that they just dropped on the site. Sound like this. It just makes it, you know, builds it up a bit more. So then with the addition of the risers, sounds like this. Really, really subtle. These are all kind of ear candy, but they do matter. They give you the pockets. So then we got so without those, your track would be a little bit two-dimensional. With them, it adds more life. And then the final thing I added in terms of this kind of thing was this little tom fill. And that's when Stanley got involved, which helped me elevate the track to another level. So Joe's a crazy talented producer and sample maker. He featured on the channel a little while ago. I sent off the whole track to him to add some guitar and add a bridge section, which is what he did. He changed the chords around, added a different guitar section, and then we worked on the synths together to add this kind of tension and release in the bridge section. So the guitar he added sounds like this. So he's recorded one in the left, one in the right, to give this kind of full feeling, and then that transitions into the bridge section. And then back in again. I think I changed around the synth bass as well, just to give it a bit less of a, I guess, funky feel. So it goes from this sound and then back in again. You can see quite often throughout the arrangement I've changed a lot of these slightly. There's no major changes. With the CMI, I think the changes were, taking out the chords or taking out the bass, accompaniment section. And then obviously for the bridge, I switched everything around. But other than that, in terms of arrangement, I also added a 1 bar long drop back into the verse. So you can see with the hook here. So it just gives it a bit of a different feel. You got a 9 bar hook instead of an 8 bar hook. But yeah, other than that, brought in the brass, as I said before, for the final hook. Added another kind of top line with the brass around here, so you can hear it sounds like this. That's not the brass. So that, you can hear that kind of in the background. If I play it from here. Computer's just about surviving. I've got so many synth tracks in here, so it's probably best I give it a break. But yeah, that's how you make an 80s beat in the style of Tory Lanez's latest album. If you got any questions, obviously drop them down in the comments below. Also love to hear some feedback, what you'd like to see in the future from us. Other than that, if you enjoyed the video, subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.